Hey everyone.
Hi guys.
Hello.
How are you? I think we're already off to the wrong start because we're sitting in the wrong order, but I think...
Is this the wrong order?
That's
Do you want us to
okay.
start?
No, no, I think we're
Where are we
good.
supposed to be? You
I
want to
think
switch?
we're good. No, I think we're good. We'll power through this. I'm really excited to be here today. Hi, I'm Ramin, Setoodeh. As the announcer mentioned, I'm the editor-in-chief for Variety, and this is going to be one of, I think, the best talks at South by London because we have the best of storytelling, film, video games, tech. We're going to be talking about all of that and covering all of that. But I wanted to start, it's a very interesting time right now in the movie industry. Obviously, how many people here have seen Obsession? Backrooms? There's a lot happening in the box office, and AGBO was started by Joe and Anthony to change the way in which storytelling was perceived and conceived in Hollywood. And I was wondering, could we talk a little bit about where you think AGBO is now and what you think of the landscape right now in the film business?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big, chunky question.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Well, I mean, maybe I'll just take one step backwards because it is sort of like, we're all partners at AGBO, and the reason, Joe and I started AGBO was, we started as independent filmmakers, like do it yourself. We grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. This is pre-digital. We did not have any filmmaking infrastructure around us whatsoever. And so when we started it was the 90s, and as we, in that independent cinema movement, we started to explore filmmaking ourselves. And at that time, we had to do it. It was a very do-it-yourself process. We kind of had to learn filmmaking on our own in a vacuum, trying to find equipment and trying to figure out people to make it with. So we had a process from the get-go as we learned how to become filmmakers, of like we were almost like our own studio back then. It just we had no money. So we just
in your own head. You were in your own head. Yeah.
Exactly. We were behaving like that.
Moguls in our own mind.
Yeah. Without infrastructure, with just the infrastructure we could scrabble together. So I mean, AGBO is just a point on that evolution. Our partnership with Donald is a point on that evolution, which is trying to develop a place where we can do work with cutting edge technology, with all our favorite creative collaborators in-house, where we are protected and energized and focused, and we're allowed to sort of incubate creative visions. And that's what AGBO has been doing, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Some of the franchises, I know that you guys already know this, but you have Extraction, Extraction 2, The Gray Man, Citadel, The Bluff, Everything Everywhere All at Once was produced through AGBO, won 7 Academy Awards. You have Extraction 3, Mercenary, The Whisper Man, John Rambo, Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars. So you're incredibly busy, but what would you say is the taste right now? How do you know if something's an AGBO movie?
I mean, it's interesting. Look, it's hard. We like telling stories, and we can only get out of bed every day to tell stories that excite us. I think that taste is diversifying because we all can communicate over little boxes we hold in our hands. That diversification is expanding into really micro niches, and you can find your group that you want to hang out with pretty quickly. If you try to chase all those groups, I think you're going to have a poor experience as a storyteller. But if you just follow your own ethos, which I think you can see, like I'm fascinated by Obsession because
Did you see it? You saw it?
It's a brilliant film.
What'd you think?
Star-making performance.
Yeah.
Harrowing, really clever, viciously funny. Right, in a very dark way.
Made for less than $1 million.
Right, yeah. And will be the highest return ever for a movie, right? That's an explosively disruptive moment. And where do you all think that the state of the film business is right now? Like, it's in a very, very complicated place, but I think that's a good thing. Yeah. I think it's a good thing because Gen Z is aging into becoming the dominant, not only the dominant audience, but the dominant storytellers. And you've grown up differently. I'm assuming a lot of Gen Zers are in here, but you've grown up differently than any prior generation in history, by leaps and bounds. You're way more technologically advanced. You've consumed way more media. You've consumed way more linear content. Everybody in this room has a PhD in storytelling, whether you went to film school or not, because you have watched thousands of hours of stories since you were born. And it's almost become ingrained in your existence. Walking down the street, you're watching one. Going to the bathroom, you're watching one. Driving in a car, you're watching one. In between classes, you're watching one, right? So it's sort of become critical. And that could be a micro story in a TikTok or a Reels, or it can be you just getting 5 minutes of whatever TV show you're watching. But it's to me, what's happening right now is this collective myth. So like Backroom's really interesting conversation. It's a collective myth that was built, by the internet, collectively on the internet, that then had a mythology built out on the internet, that then Parsons grabbed and turned into a story, and everybody said, I want to go see that. Everyone who participated in the community of that story wanted to go see that story. That is a very different way of telling stories than where Hollywood anoints a story that they deem everyone should watch, right?
But I think that's what's so cool, right? Because like most of us now grew up in a world where we had film, we had video games, and now we're walking around with these insanely powerful devices in our pockets that can do all this stuff. But also like we all have like these amazing filmmaking tools in our pocket. Like you can kind of do a lot of this stuff just with what you're already walking around with, and I think that just enables new storytellers to tell new stories in completely different ways.
I think this analogy of like the chief comes out and says, hey, here's the story you're going to hear. Or the village says, no, hold on, we've got a story we want to tell. It's a completely different approach. It's fascinating, and I think it's going to lead to a shake-up in a really good way and a lot of really interesting stories being told.
Donald, can you talk a little bit about how you started working with Joe and Anthony? I think the story goes that they were working on Infinity War, right? And they wanted to pitch you a Fortnite with Thanos. And then you became friends, and now you're a partner at AGBO?
Yeah, so Infinity War was probably about a month away from coming out.
Right.
I was a huge fan. I'm a huge Marvel fan, huge film fan, and I was already like a massive fan of Joe and Anthony. Weirdly, I don't know we talk about this part. Like the morning before we talked for the first time, I was at the dentist, and I'm in the chair, and there was like a TV on in my face, and Winter Soldier was playing, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this movie so much. So at the time, I made this game called Fortnite, and Fortnite was the biggest game in the world at the time, and we had like hundreds of millions of players kind of engaged in this really kind of unique experience, and I think Joe's son was playing Fortnite.
My son was a huge gamer at the time, and I remember I was sitting with him watching him play for like 2 hours, and it was his idea. He said, "Are you ever going to do like Marvel skins? Can I ever like play one of the characters?" And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to like call up Fortnite and find out if they'd ever let us do something like that. So this is like my 14-year-old, probably the best marketing idea in like 20 years of movies. And so I called Disney. I said, can you get Donald Mustard on the phone? Will he talk to me about this? And not only did we talk, but we talked for like 4 hours. We were just getting obsessed with the idea of how, virtual storytelling and linear storytelling needed each other in a way so that they could disrupt each other and we could find new ways to tell stories. And here I have my son who's in his own story, which is the story Donald's telling. Like Donald's instigating people to create their own stories in a virtual space and interact with each other and interact with their friends. And then concerts are coming in and, skins and different parts of pop culture. And suddenly it just becomes this sort of, it's the town square where you can hang out and you don't need a passport and you don't need an airplane ticket. And, you can go there anytime you want. It's free for the most part. And you get to hang out. And I said, what would you think if we did, what did I pitch you first? Was it Thor?
Yeah, it was some kind of other thing because it was just like what if we just brought some stuff in? But the more we talked, like I was not just a fan of the movies, but I grew up on the comics. Like I love Marvel comics and I love Infinity War specifically. And I'm like, well, like we only had 4 weeks. Like this was not a lot of time. And it's like we kind of got to this idea of like, no, what if Thanos actually came into Fortnite? And it wasn't just a skin. It wasn't this like Thanos comes in and you can be Thanos. Like you can run around on the Fortnite island and just like use the Infinity Gauntlet and just kind of like be that character. And we just got so excited about it. And there was a lot that we had to push through to make that happen. Like all the kind of traditional silos, even within my own team at Epic and within Disney, like it was hard to make that happen in the short amount of time we did. But I remember going to like a couple of my core people on the team, and I'm like, what if? Like, what if we did this bonkers thing? And Rob, if you ever see this guy leans over and he rolls up his sleeve, and he literally has a tattoo of the Infinity Gauntlet. And he's like, I was born for this, right? And so we worked like crazy, and yeah, like
it was explosive for us, explosive for the movie, and it was like taking the chocolate and the peanut butter and smushing them together, and we went, something really interesting here. Maybe there's more of this can be done in an interesting way.
And so we all just became not just really, really dear friends, but just the more that we kind of talked and worked together over the last few years, it just kind of became inevitable that we were going to form a partnership and build stuff together moving forward. And
around that creative ethos.
Yeah.
And how does your background in video games help you bring a different perspective to AGBO?
Well, it's interesting. Like the language of video games, or it's not even video games. Like the language of putting people into an interactive place or an interactive narrative is a little different than a linear narrative. And there's kind of different things you have to consider as you're approaching that. But a lot of like the techniques and that you use to get emotion out of a character or get people to feel things are similar. So we speak a very similar language, but we just kind of have a different lens of how we've gotten really good at it over the last 20, 30 years. So for me, it's been amazing. Like, because I learned so much from you two every day, and I probably don't bring much to them, but like,
That's great.
no, it's not. We're teaching each other a lot. And what's really amazing is like when you kind of put that peanut butter and chocolate together, like what we're making together now is really special. And I think when you see all of what we're working on together, it's amazing.
Yeah.
That includes Doomsday, which you guys are working on in London. And then next year we have Secret Wars that comes out. I know that you can't say a lot about Doomsday, but what can you tell us? Because we're all looking forward to seeing it. And it was interesting because I went back and I read an article that the two of you did for our cover of Variety a few years ago, and you talked about finishing on a high note with Infinity War, and you said you were too busy to work on anything Marvel related till the end of the decade. And we're not at the end of the decade, so you did decide to go back to Marvel. So can you talk a little bit sort of about the decision to go back to Marvel and why this was the right project for both of you?
Sure. We were telling the truth when we made Endgame, and we were like, oh yeah, this is our Endgame. At that point, we had begun telling stories within the MCU.
Endgame, sorry, I meant Endgame, not Infinity War, obviously. Yes, that was the final.
My brain just went there.
Yes.
We had begun telling stories in the MCU with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. In Captain America: Civil War, we started segueing into Civil War was kind of like almost an Avengers film, and that just ended up setting up us doing Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Yeah. It was a 4-movie arc. We felt like we had gone through a real completion in storytelling in terms of where we were able to bring the characters, specifically Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, etc., Thanos himself, in that arc. Yeah. And we did really feel like our job with those 2 Avengers movies was really to sort of provide a climax to what the MCU had been up to that point, even beyond the work that we had done. So there was a sense that we had, which was like, okay, there's no narrative past this. That was our understanding. It took a few years for us to move past that story. And it, oddly enough, we're very close with Marvel. We are sort of every few months we'll talk. We're very close friends with them, and we talk a lot about a lot of creative ideas that we don't end up working on. But eventually, we just came to an idea, and it was Steve McFeely, who, the writer who co-wrote all the Marvel work that we did. He came up with this creative idea that sort of reignited, and I can't talk about that creative idea because it's the basis for Doomsday, but that all of a sudden broke the skies open for us. And we saw all new kinds of possibilities within the MCU with that idea. And it was very much based upon the work we had done prior, and now we have Donald in like official partnership on those films as well. So it's an exciting time for us.
Talk a little bit about Downey, because he plays Dr. Doom, and there's a moment in this film where we understand why he looks like Tony Stark, because he's not Tony Stark. But talk about how important Downey was to this piece of the puzzle in assembling this cast.
Yeah. I mean, just no better actor in the world than Robert Downey. And he, I'm not going to give away anything, but you can see me struggling. It's like a bead of sweat just dripping. I'm trying to figure out.
They're all on the edge of their seats. They're literally leaning forward, waiting to hear what you're going to say.
How to explain this to you without giving anything away. Look, it'll all make sense when you watch the movies. I think that what we love about telling these stories is that they're serialized. This is a giant experiment. Nobody's ever done anything like this before. Marvel's unique. You're taking all these different franchises and combining them into overarching stories. And if you're a fan of the comics like I was, I still have my comic book collection, and I'm 54 years old. The idea of that serial shifting and changing and surprising you, and then reinventing itself, and then shifting and changing, and then surprising you, that's exciting. And I think you're going to see some shifting and changing and reinvention. So get ready for it. I think, look, I was with Robert earlier today, and we were both talking about this concept that we are back to phase 0. We're starting over from scratch. We're going to, we want to make sure everybody feels like, we're not leaning on anything from the past. This is going to be you'll see when you see the movie, a complete new direction.
Yeah, I mean, you know what an incredible performer Robert is, and so it's a brand new character that you can't even guess at.
How do you pitch him to come back? How does that go?
I'll tell you that here's the funny thing. I'll tell you the first time we met Robert was, so we after Winter Soldier came out and was a success, Marvel wanted us to do another Captain America film. And we really wanted to do Civil War, which wasn't on the table at the time. And Iron Man and Robert were a key part of that vision for that story. And so we pitched Marvel on the idea, and Kevin Feige was like, all right, we can do it, but you just got to go get Robert. And so I was sort of like, well, aren't you going to go get Robert with us? And so he was like...
We never met him. We're like,
good luck.
And we showed up at his house, and he was on a chaise lounge, laid out in his backyard, a little iced tea sitting there, like 2 chairs in front of him, like the Inquisition, And we had to sit. And he was like, I hear you're dreaming up something. Why don't you tell me what it is? And we had to pitch him.
Were you nervous?
Very nervous because we had spent months crafting this pitch, and if he said no, we're just going to have to throw the whole movie out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work without him. And it was not, it was a high-risk pitch, right? This is Robert, on his own career redemption arc, right, with this incredibly famous character, a lot at stake for him. And we said, crazy idea. What if he's the villain, And he's a gambler, and he was like, that's a great idea. I like where it's going. Now, obviously, when you watch the film, we work a lot harder to make sure that both sides are represented, so it's a more complicated movie. Its mission ultimately is to make you try to pick sides, which is really dependent on who you are as a person. But it was very risky for him to do that. And then what's interesting about, this is how things go full circle, he talked us into coming back to do Doomsday. So we were committed to not doing anything till the end of the decade. Yeah. And then I had dinner with him 2 years ago, and he said,
what if?
Crazy idea. What if? And at the time I said, you're out of your fucking mind. That was my immediate response.
That was prior to Steve McFeely.
Yeah.
Coming up with the idea.
We were so exhausted. We did 4 of those in 7 years. It was a very crazy, compressed period to do movies of that scale and that small of a time frame. And I was joking at the last panel that, my brother and I aged like U.S. presidents. There's a photo of us before we make a Marvel movie, and then there's a photo of us after we make a Marvel movie.
Pretty soon we'll be directing from bed.
Yeah.
Like old.
So those things take a very physical toll on your body. They take a psychological toll. So
Look, some of it's also this. So I was with Robert yesterday, and he was. I'm just gonna compliment you two a little bit. Like he was talking with some of the other people we work with, and he's like, there's just something about Joe and Anthony. He's like, I trust them more than anyone. They're the kindest people. They're the greatest collaborators. They treat everyone like family, and that's the truth. And I've watched you work for years, but now I get to watch you work and how you really work. And they are truly like after what is the best idea, what makes the best story, what's the best performance. There's no ego in any of it. You ask any of the actors that have worked with you. That's why everyone wants to work with you over and over again, because you're in pursuit of making something that's just wonderful for the audience, right? Like, it's all they care about is like, how do we just tell the very best story with the very best people? And that just like ripples through everyone that you work with, and it's incredible to watch, and everyone loves you for it. And Robert, more than anybody, he would do anything, right?
Thank you, Don. I'll pay you backstage.
No, it's the truth, and that's why. Yeah. That's how you get magic.
How do you juggle when you're working in world building? How do you juggle very large ensembles? Because obviously when you have one major star in a movie, you're going to have to make sure that star is getting what he or she needs. But when you have 20 or 30 major stars in a movie, how do you navigate that? Whether it's on an Avengers film or Setoodeh or another project that you.
We have a phrase that we call it firm papa, firm mama. You got to like be firm, but gentle at the same time. You have to create an environment where there's structure, but there's a lot of movement in the structure. Especially when you're dealing. I mean, I think these movies have more movie stars than any movies in history, And movie stars, by their very nature, want to shine. That's their job. And it's hard to shine when there's 19 other movie stars in a scene with you. So we have to work meticulously hard to make sure that everyone gets those moments, because each one of those actors is playing somebody's favorite character. Yeah. And so if you're not going to service the character properly, then you're going to disappoint somebody in that audience. So we put a lot of work into, and we grew up in a big Italian family. We love ensembles. We did Arrested Development. We did Community. Yeah. We understand how to tell stories with multiple characters. A lot of that has to do with very subtle POV shifts throughout the story, with one overarching POV, like Infinity War is all told from Thanos' point of view. But if Thor, when he lands, if that axe cuts Thanos' head off, it's actually Thor's movie. That's how close those points of view are to each other, and that's all very calibrated, from a storytelling standpoint to maximize impact and to maximize the surprise for you, so that you instinctually, because we're fighting against, as I talked about earlier, the PhD inside of all of you that can read a story that you can, 10 minutes in, you can go, I know how this is going to end because that's the 10-minute moment. That's setting me up for how this is going to pay off. Oh, I've seen this filmmaker's work before. They tend to do optimistic endings. It's going to end well. Or I've seen their work before. It's the Coen brothers. Everybody's going to die. You know, like you have an instinct that tells you based on what you're watching, what you're going to get. We have to work very hard to surprise you and to circumvent that instinct by giving you these subtle calibrations and point of view that keep you guessing while you're watching the movie.
I mean, we do have a creative process that is, even though like a 2.5 hour, 3-act structure film is always based around generally based around a single character arc overall. We do have a creative process where we really do envision the movie and the narrative from each individual character's point of view, and paint the movie from that character's point of view. Even if that character is just intersecting with a small part of the story, it's creatively energizing to filter the film through even a small character's point of view occasionally.
I have so many questions for you guys. Okay, let's go into one more Marvel question, then I'll move on. What is your favorite costume as directors, would you say, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
In Marvel.
Costume?
Yeah. You added in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was going to...
Doom.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Doom.
The best.
It's good.
Why?
You'll have to see.
Yeah. It's
Doom.
representative of the character in a way that the costume, the character really, really fit.
I mean, part of our challenge has always been there's a set of there's something that we love from the comics, and there's something that other fans of the comics love. Sometimes those things are the same things, sometimes they're different things. It can be, you never know, but like a lot of times what our expression in the movie ends up being what we love most about the comics, but then what is original to our storytelling, what is brand new, because we always look at it as our job to like not tell you a story that you've heard before.
Yeah.
We're never translating directly from the comics. We're always adding a new experience that hasn't been written yet in terms of who these characters can be. But I would say Doom hits that sweet spot between being very specific and unique to the wholly original story that happens within this film, but also delivering on what the most awesome things are about Doom from the comics.
Is Downey very collaborative about what he wants in the costume?
Extremely.
As you
collaborative is, that's putting it nice.
Downey, here's the thing about Downey, like we generally prefer this as collaborators. It's the way we work. We like
turning down the lights. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say
I like Spotlight is Downey here.
Yeah.
Quit shit talking him.
Our favorite collaborators are always people who think like filmmakers, whether they're composers or production designers or actors, whoever it may be, editors involved in our creative process. Our favorite people we always respond to are the ones that think like holistic filmmakers. And certainly Robert is the extreme example of that. Robert doesn't only think like an actor, he thinks like a storyteller.
Micro-detailed.
Yeah.
You founded AGBO in 2017. You've had 15 #1 openings at the box office, Everything Everywhere All at Once, winning Best Picture. And then you guys decided to make The Gray Man, which became one of the most watched Netflix films of all time, 300 million hours watched. Why was the Netflix relationship important for AGBO?
It's interesting. Everything we've done our entire careers is experimentation. And technology is fascinating to us. We were the first filmmakers to shoot digital video for a narrative show on television. So, meaning, when we used beta cams to shoot Arrested Development, which was the only way we could make the show because it was too expensive to shoot it any other way. We had to move really quickly. We had a run and gun. We couldn't afford to light it. So our idea was, well, let's shoot it like a mockumentary. We'd seen an incredible film a few years earlier called Man Bites Dog, which is a mockumentary about a serial killer being followed around by a film crew. I think it won the Palme d'Or. And we were vibing off of that, and we thought, let's just make the show, the comedy, It's low rent, and it should feel like a reality TV show because maybe you can't tell the difference about whether it's real or fake. So technology is critically important to us, and experimentation is really important to us with technology. It's why we founded our own company, so we had our own autonomy to experiment more, to try different things. We're platform agnostic. Like, there are stories that belong in different places. You know, we have to stop, I think, trying to identify or trying to define that every story has to, fit for every medium, and that certain mediums are better than other mediums. It's not true. It just isn't true. Like, watch the story where you want to watch the story. If you don't want to watch it at home, go watch it in a theater. If you want to watch it in a theater, go watch it at home. You want to watch it on a computer, watch it on your phone. It's your right to watch a story how you want to watch it be told. And there's amazing filmmakers who have been working in your phone, on the phone format, who are now blowing up the box office. So it's all translatable, at some point. And there are tremendous assets to digital platforms that you can't get there's an incredible amount of diversity in digital platforms because they're more regionally focused, and they'll do regional content. So, there's just real opportunities there for regional filmmakers to get an opportunity to make something with some real financial backing behind it. So all of this stuff should be embraced, right? And I think that part of the problem with culture today is everything's conflict-driven, because social media is conflict-driven, because that's what's sticky, and that's what keeps you on social media. Because if you're happy, you're not on social media. You are out living your life. You're not worried about what other people are doing in their life. And you're not worried about what your neighbor said and getting upset and rage-baited by what your neighbor said, right? So, at a certain point, like, if we don't stop attacking every segment or every sector doesn't view the other sector as its enemy, we're not going to have any stories left, because we're going to go down some rabbit hole where everything is just vitriol. That's all that's left, is sort of, everybody attacking each other. And I think it's really important point, because maybe the only true community binder that we have left, the one thing left that binds all of us, are stories. And the more we can diversify those stories, the more we can democratize how those stories are told, which is why I love what's happening in the theatrical space. The more we can create technological tools that bring down the cost and the risk factor behind making these things, the more diverse and democratized stories will become. And that ultimately was the ethos behind AGBO. How do we shake things up in a way behind the scenes that then allow other filmmakers, and most of the work that we do, like with the Daniels, they had done one movie prior to that. We sat them down at lunch and we said, we have a company, we've been very fortunate. We made some movies that made a lot of money. Blank check. We loved your film. What do you want to make next? And it took them 2 years to figure it out, but they did. But that's how Sam Hargrave, who directed Extraction, he was on Winter Soldier, he was a stunt double for Chris Evans. Then we elevated him because we went, you have a great eye. We elevated him to a second unit director. And then from that, we said, you should be making a movie. So it's really, how do you find opportunities to foster new voices, and what can we do with all the work we've done and all the assets we have to try to create tools that will allow these voices to tell their own stories without going through the traditional system.
Because that's kind of what we're about. Like, we are storytellers. We love stories. Like, we're in most ways, we're in the business of joy and delight, right? We want to thrill you. We want to entertain you. We want to move you, and we want to be moved by other people, right? And so, like, the idea that we can help lots of people make lots of stories that we are excited to consume, and like is amazing to us.
And to be part of.
Yeah, exactly.
Donald, under your leadership, Fortnite became something no one in the world really had a way to describe. 350 million registered players. You had a Travis Scott.
800 million now.
Oh, it's 800 million now. Travis Scott concert watched by 12 million people all at once. Is that true? So What was the lesson from working on Fortnite for you as a storyteller?
Well, the lesson, it was really the opportunity, right? So like I had chosen to spend a lot of my time in that medium, in the medium of interactivity. And there's been a lot of stuff that we'd been thinking about and experimenting with for years. But when Fortnite took off, and all of a sudden I had, like the first couple of weeks, it was like 30 million people, and it was 100 million people, and it was hundreds of millions of people.
Were you tracking as in real time?
No, we could see it. I mean, I had like literally a thing on my wall, just like showing me like, this is how many people are playing right this second.
Yeah.
It's like 10 million people right now are doing this thing. And it gave me this massive opportunity and platform to be able to experiment with the stuff I was passionate about, which is experiential storytelling. Like, what can you do when you've got millions and millions of people, and I had the technology that let me be able to put them all together at the same time. And so that was my dream, was like, can I tell a story over years where you're all experiencing it together, right? Where I could do concerts, but even beyond concerts, I'd have my story playing out in the world while everyone's there engaged in it. So we'd have tens of millions of people witnessing and participating in this story that's happening live around you. And it was magical. It let me experiment with stuff that just didn't exist before. And oh man, did we learn so much by going through that process. And I think there's still so much more to do in that medium. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're so excited to be doing stuff together, because taking all of what we've learned over the last 30 years and building new experiences and new stories, but taking all of what we've learned together is just like, it's gonna be amazing.
We can't wait to watch. I have one last question. We're almost out of time. In 20 seconds, we have a lot of young people in the audience. In 20 seconds each, we want to start with you, Joe, going down the line. What is the one piece of advice you would give someone who wants to break into the entertainment industry?
I saw somebody came up on my TikTok feed and they were joking about like, oh, every time I go to a film festival, the guy's like, you got a camera, it's in your pocket, just make a movie, go make a movie. I mean, it's look at Obsession, right? Like, you have to just tell stories, and you can tell stories on any scale. You can tell stories in 1 minute, you can tell stories in 30 seconds. You can tell a 5-minute story, you can work in YouTube Shorts, you can work on TikToks, you can work on Reels, you can do whatever you want. The more you do it, the better you get at editing, and the better you get at understanding how the audience is going to respond to the things that are important to you that you are trying to translate to them. So it is true. Just pick up your phone and shoot stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say what I was going to say is somewhat connected, but it's like whatever's standing in the way, whatever's holding you back, whatever's blocking you, find a way to get past it and just do it. Like it's never going to be perfect. Just try something. That's one reason why we started the No Sleep Till Film Fest, which has a clock on it in terms of how you produce material. It's like it was a challenge to people to just take a challenge, make something, and see what happens.
One of my favorite storytellers right now is this Instagram channel called Mummy Joe. And Mummy Joe, Google it up. He makes these really cool little stick figure almost animated shorts. They're brilliant. They're so funny, they're so heartfelt, they're amazing. It's just someone telling awesome stories. When I was 12, I couldn't afford a computer, I couldn't afford a camera, but I had a pencil, so I could start drawing comic books, and I could write stuff. And then that taught me how to tell stories, and then I got better tools, and then I could make different stories. Like, just start telling stories.
That's great advice. Thank you guys very much. AGBO does that. They tell stories. Have a great day.